Okay, welcome to Storyhive On-Location Nanaimo. We are here coming to you live from the unceded and ancestral territories of the Qualicum First Nations people. Deep bow, deep respect, deep love to the original caretakers of these lands. My name is Jordan Dack, poet, producer, songwriter, and host of this deep dive into the creative process where we speak to creators of all types. Creators of businesses, organizations, songs, films, whatever have you, just beautiful humans doing beautiful things in the world. And today I am joined with someone who I'm just starting to get to know, who is an absolute force in not just Qualicum Beach, but beyond, a arts director, a cultural architect, and someone who I met 10 minutes ago, and I'm already a huge fan of. So this is Illana Hester.
Hi, thank you for coming.
Welcome. Welcome. I just welcomed Illana to her own space.
Well, that's okay. We're all just walking each other home.
Yeah, absolutely. How you doing?
Good today. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. Doing
Sun's
quite
nice.
well. Yes, it's
day.
actually warm out.
It's a nice part of the island to come to.
I feel like summer is being its authentic self all of a sudden.
Right, but it's dry and crispy, so
Yeah.
rain's okay. January is not unwelcome
Absolutely, we're okay. We're okay with that as well. So to kick things off, I'm just going to say a few facts about you.
Sure.
Now, you let us know if they are true or not, and feel free to add in some context or backstory. All right? Okay, here we go. True or false? Illana was born and raised in Qualicum Beach.
False. I'm actually an Alberta kid. I am originally from Calgary, Alberta, though I spent most of my formative work life in New York City before I moved here 7 years ago. So I've been a coast kid for just 7 years, but I have to say it's amazing out here. I love it. The impact that you can have is significant, and there's so many interesting and wonderful people. It's also beautiful. I love living somewhere where there's like the beach after the name.
Absolutely.
Don't hate it. It's beautiful here.
Okay, quick interjection.
Yeah.
I'm born and raised in Calgary.
Okay, there you go.
Where in Calgary were you born and raised?
I am from Altadore, but I went to Western Canada High School.
Okay, you went to Western.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay.
Yeah,
well,
but I'm actually not surprised to hear it. I think that a lot of creative folks out here and a lot of entrepreneurs are actually from Calgary. Calgary instills in you a hustle that is kind of a little bit different than other places in Canada.
I completely agree. It instills a hustle, but then if you have any desire to be in the art world or you have a creative force running through you, many of us have run to the coast.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because it's far better funded in Alberta than it is here.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And you look at incredible institutions like the Glenbow and the library in Calgary and other programs that they have, and they are very well funded arts programs in Alberta. So
absolutely.
Kudos to them for that.
Yeah, big up Alberta.
Yeah.
I don't usually say that.
Right? We don't always say because they have other problems. We know that.
Yeah. We're not covering
arts funding
the breadth
is not one of them.
That's correct. Yeah. Okay, next. True or false? Your 3 guiding principles for Tosh, which is the old Schoolhouse Art Center, which is where we are sitting right now, were digitization, accessibility, and intergenerationality.
I would say yes, that is true. Those are a lot of my guiding forces in general. This is a pretty interesting building. It's like from 1913. We're in a 113-year-old building here in the heart of Qualicum Beach. Qualicum Beach is also a very small town. There's one stoplight. It's often referred to, as like Gilmore Girls or like a gingerbread village. It's quite charming and cute here.
Hallmark movie.
It is Hallmark movie kind of esque, but it's also nice to live in that sort of small community in town. It was a big shock coming from New York to here. Like you just go to the bank and they just put your money in your account without you telling them who you are, which was a shocker. And then also like a charge account, like at a hardware store, you can just say, charge it.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't have to pay until later.
Yeah.
Amazing. These are small town things that are sort of, I think, lost in a bigger city, but we're really proud when we got here.
Not to go too deep down a rabbit hole that may or may not have anything to do with what we're talking about today, but there was this, I think it was Socrates said, a town should never grow big enough where you can't hear somebody scream.
There.
Where you can't take care of where people get lost,
Yeah.
you know, in the system and whatnot. Do you feel that Qualicum has gone beyond that size already, maybe philosophically or geographically?
No, not at all. And
No.
even Vancouver Island in general. Like, I mean, I keep telling folks that all of Canada only has the population of California.
Yes.
In all of Canada, right? And then we take it further and then see what groups are part of the arts or what parts are part of any equity lens, and the world gets smaller and smaller. And so I think that we have the perfect size out here. Like Vancouver Island to me is the perfect size for any pilot program. It's a really interesting, really different communities that make up Vancouver Island. It's about 1 million people.
Yeah.
Tip to tail, it's only 8 hours. But you have such a huge variety from funding to how politics works to how individual communities are, that you get this really, really great breadth and range on Vancouver Island as a pilot itself.
Very
So
cool.
we've done lots of studies out here on Vancouver Island in particular because I think it's such an interesting place. I mean, we'll get into it, but
Yeah,
you know,
I've got
Vancouver
5
Island
questions.
has more artists per capita than anywhere else in Canada. It's 5% of the population, 35,000 artists.
And of course, the funding is proportionate.
Well, the funding is disproportionate, right?
Yeah,
But well, I'm
exactly.
sure we'll get into that
We will.
conversation and what that looks like. But I always think that's really interesting. And when we're thinking about impact too, I mean, I would run programs in New York for 500 people, and it was like a teardrop in the ocean. You know, the thing about working community arts and working community arts out here, and why I want to come back so much, was that it's really relevant, your impact. And your impact becomes smaller in the sense that it's more individual. The impact on the individual is more significant, but then the impact that you can have on a system is larger because that individual reflects the system in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Okay, in this moment, we'll edit this out, but I want you to bring that microphone up a little higher. Yeah.
Hear me better?
That's great. Yeah, we're in an absolutely beautiful gallery space here that is large.
And
so,
echoey.
Yeah, a
and
little
I've already
echoey.
told Jordan we have good ghosts because they've been messing with our sound already.
They
so.
have, yeah. They're welcome here. They
Yeah.
can,
But
leave
113
our
years
audio
old,
alone.
you have to have something, right?
Totally. Okay, true or false? Prior to joining Tosh, Illana ran a very successful chain of escape rooms.
I
That's true,
wish.
right? Sounds awesome.
Like, do you like to go to escape rooms? No, I have never run an escape room in my life. That is false.
Okay.
But also delightful.
Delightful. Okay, moving on then. True or false? During COVID, Tosh moved almost all of its programming online.
Yes, we did do that during COVID. It was tough. COVID was tough. You know, it's tough for arts institutions like ours that don't receive operating funding from any level of government. You know, and what that looks like means that we have to have the doors open in order to keep everything generative for artists. We're a really interesting institution that we hadn't been in the granting system before I got here 7 years ago. So we had never gotten a Canada Council for the Arts grant or a BC Arts Council grant.
Right.
And during COVID, those were the main mechanisms for distributing emergency funds to arts organizations. So if you weren't visible in that system, you were invisible for aid. And so the help that we got was from smaller community foundations or smaller organizations, or it was a different way. And because we don't have operating funds, it makes it so it's a really interesting pie here, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, lots of questions. Okay, finally. The Old Schoolhouse Arts Center has resident artist studios on site, as well as gallery spaces, workshops, and music programming?
Yeah, we do have 4 music concerts. We used to have more regular music programming, but those were run on a private grant.
Okay.
And you know, there's this really interesting thing that happens with Canadian nonprofits, which maybe we should just get into as a start. So I think that when I come from this American system where nonprofits receive a tax donation right away, right? Like you run a nonprofit is because we know that the government can't run that service, which is the same as in Canada. That's why nonprofits exist, right? They're in one of my board members says that nonprofits are in the business of making meaning, not in the business of making margins. But we still have to pay for things to be open. Like toilet paper still costs money, and people's labor still costs money. And everything that we provide as a service, it still comes with a dollar tag. But we sort of expect nonprofits to just provide these services because the government cannot, right? And that's why we have this nonprofit tax bracket.
Right.
But the nonprofit tax bracket is well funded in the States because people know the government won't provide those services. But here in Canada, I think that there's like a little bit of a less of an understanding that if a nonprofit is not funded by any level of government, then it is up to the community to pay for that service, which is a challenge, right? It's a challenge in your messaging. It's a challenge for people to understand, but it's also this, I think, smoke and mirrors around what nonprofit funding looks like, right?
Yeah.
If you're in a really good nonprofit pie, and pie, I'm talking about like where your funds are coming from, 40 to 60% of that should be from a government agent if you're a nonprofit that is successfully operating.
Right.
That's a really significant portion of your pie, right? And that isn't program grants. That's operational grants. That's grants to keep the doors open and pay for the toilet paper and pay for people to work here and pay for visitor services and all the other things that you offer. And so when you don't have that, it does like fold your operations onto the services that you provide, right? And so there's always this tension when you're a nonprofit that you are constantly providing a service for people that is a necessary service, and the arts is a necessary service fundamentally, and we can definitely get into why that is. But if you don't have that operating fund, you're always like limping along, and you're always like arguing for your relevance in a way, but also asking the community that you're serving to pay for the services they're offering. So it's always a little bit of a touch and go.
Now, on that point, you know, I've spoken to many people and traveled throughout Europe and whatnot, where there are certain places where it feels like the importance of art and the essential nature of art is just
inherent.
Understood, inherent. No one questions it.
Yeah.
You know, there's no conversation where I find myself sitting there having to, you know, convince somebody like this is why it's important.
For sure.
But you know, I find myself in those conversations all the time here on Vancouver Island, in Canada.
Yeah.
What do? You must find yourself in those situations where you need to justify the value of art all the time.
I think we always have to, and arts is always the first thing that cuts, but it's really interesting because it's really the cohesion of community happens in an art space, right? And what you really need to make a good community happens in the arts and happens creatively. And I think that people take it as a given instead of a thing that you have to cultivate and be part of. It's also an interesting, like as far as philanthropy in the arts, like we also have to think about like how young Vancouver Island really is. Like it wasn't that long ago that we were all just pulling logs out of the forest. Like that was our main industry, and that's what happened on Vancouver Island, right? And and then we had this huge wave of artists that came up in the 70s and like war draft and people moving out here. Right. And so we do have a big creative population, but necessarily did the infrastructure of government and the infrastructure of support follow that? Not necessarily. So it's a bit like, I'm like, this is really, when we talk about Calgary being the Wild West, it's not really, you know, like Vancouver Island is ultimately the Wild West. And as far as like arguing for how important the arts is, it's so interesting because no one can picture a day that is gray. Like when you ask someone how their life is, they have their favorite coffee cup, they get dressed in the morning, they like a certain color sock. All of those are creative decisions. Like all of those are aesthetic and arts-based decisions if we want to get down to them. And when we also look at community cohesion and how people talk to one another, I think that art is the softest place to have the hard conversation. This is the place where you can come and say, I don't like that. And someone says, I do like that. And you're both right. And you can both be in your rightness and exist together and still respect one another and still go out and have coffee and have lunch after. And there's no breaking of that relationship because of it. And so I think that having more opportunities to engage in an art space and engage in conversation around that teaches people how to have civic discourse and teaches people to be civil, right? And live in the gray area. Yeah,
it sounds like it's also a great space for kids and youth coming up to know that who they are is totally perfect exactly as they are, which is the lesson that art provides all day long.
Right? Yeah, totally. And also that we can disagree and still be civil. And there's so many opportunities to do that. And I think that our world's becoming more and more torn apart and like kind of disparate and like polarized.
Absolutely.
And it's very unnecessary. You know, I think at the heart of things, people want the same things for their neighbors, right? And art is really, art and creativity and community spaces like this are really places that foster that conversation and so become really important for that sort of thing. But in addition to that, there's so many studies done. There's a beautiful book that was just written by Daisy, I'm gonna butcher her last name. She's out of the University of London. It's an RX for Art book. It actually takes qualitative data real art and health data and aggregates them and shows like how important art is to your health. We know that when seniors engage in artwork, they stay alive for 7.5 years longer.
Is that right?
Yeah, you're involved in community. It's like if somebody remembers your name in your coffee order, right?
Right.
It's like,
so it's not just art, it's engagement.
It's
and
engagement,
connection.
it's community. It's also third space. I think that folks forget how important third space was, especially when you live in a rural place that, you know, and a third space for our viewers and folks who don't know, is anywhere that's not work or home. So it's a coffee shop, it's a bar. We now have like a pub here, which is very well attended, you know, but a community art center is like that too. The library is like that too. You know, it's a place that you can go and be in community and not have this obligation to work or where you live. And so those places become even more important as we become more digitized and as we become more, I think, grandiose in where our minds are in a way. It comes back to this.
Okay, so let's go back for a minute to New York, okay?
Sure.
So, or rather the transition. So I'd love to know, so you moved from New York, and was Qualicum Beach the next stop for you? Or was
No, I actually moved to Halifax, and I was in Dartmouth and Halifax for about 6-7 months. Which was a really interesting re-entry into the Canadian art market and culture. There is this really interesting scarcity model in the arts up here, where it's like, if you bring something or there's any sort of competition, it's like less pie for someone. And I come from a $1 billion arts industry where it's not less pie, let me tell you that much.
Right.
You know, it's Chanel bags and
right.
you know, and nice shoes. It's like, it's not less of anything. And so there was this real dichotomy when I came back and trying to grapple with the notion that art makes no money, because that's not true. And so how were Canadian marketplaces situating themselves to tell this conversation and to exist in this? And for me, right? And it also came down to also that like, artists are small businesses. We're micro businesses. And I always use this analogy because I do a lot of arts coaching for folks. And I always say, you know, are you going to open a restaurant and you're going to be the chef and you're going to be the maitre d' and you're also going to do the delivery drivers and you're also going to answer the phone, you're going to market, you're just going to do it all. And someone will look at you and be like, you are insane. Like, no one would do that. That's a terrible business model. It's going to break. Say that to every artist ever, right? And so I think that there's a lot of translation service that's needed for artists to be able to fulfill their best business needs. And those supports are not necessarily available. You don't get that in art school. You don't get that when you do an MA in arts either. And so folks who are EDs and folks who are in the administration part of this need to be that kind of conduit for folks in that translation service is something that happens a lot.
And cut through that starving artist myth, you know.
Very much.
You know, and it's as long as we're in that starving artist myth, it's so easy to devalue the work that you do.
Totally.
And, you know, it's just it's a spiral that just sort of feeds itself.
Totally,
you know?
but it's also fed by policy, right? And it's also fed by funding cuts and also how other people view it. So I think it's an oddly self-fulfilling prophecy, but not one we need to engage with. And I think that people are getting better at telling that story, and part of telling that story is really about having good data. And so it all kind of goes back to those like the core tenets of like, what is digitization? For me, digitization is about collecting data and being able to tell your story.
And do you feel that, you know, when you do consult with an artist who's looking to monetize their work, is digitization one of those first conversations that you have if they haven't already pursued?
Definitely, that is a key. Like, you have to have a database of your work. You have to be able to disseminate your work, talk about your work, and share your work. That's an easy win, right? But more than that, I think that the goals of individual artists are varied. And I think that that's where artists get tripped up in making their mission and making their business plans. They don't make business plans. I don't know there's so many artists that don't make business plans.
There's business people who don't make business plans.
Right,
So,
it's like we're just like winging it here, folks. You don't need to do that. That sounds like a panic attack, right? And so I think that's part of it, is thinking about that. But also this idea that the ultimate success as an artist is being a very well-shown artist. And that is false news. Like, not everyone can be Beyonce. Like when someone's like, oh, I want to have this guy. And I was like, great, you want to be Beyonce. That's the cultural equivalent of what you're talking about. But can you be a working artist and have a an incredibly robust job and be making enough money to sustain yourself? Absolutely yes. How are you going to go about that? You need to make a plan.
Yeah. And when you're consulting with artists about turning their art into a business, does the conversation come up around what their relationship to their art, how that might change when they've monetized it?
Totally.
You know, because there's often, it can also at times, and I've seen this happen, take away the love that you once had.
Not all hobbies need to be making money.
No, yeah,
you know,
that's right.
and we can be creative and passionate and interesting people and still have a day job. And I think that when we take that away from artists and say that you're not an artist, capital A, unless you are fulfilling it in this way, that's the same kind of patriarchal capital frame of everything.
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
You know, it doesn't serve the work, and it also doesn't serve the person. You know, some of my favorite artists had day jobs, like Jan Schoenhoven.
Right.
He actually, he's an incredible contemporary artist, and he makes lots of cardboard work that are then like plastered in white and are very geometric and modern, very much like the work we're sitting in front of almost. But he worked at the post office because the tea was hot,
Right.
so he could get lots of hot goss, which fueled him immensely.
Yeah.
And then he also had access to cardboard and also all these other things that he had. You know, David Warner owns his estate now.
Okay.
So it's not like an insignificant artist. He has had, you know, significant impact in the art history canon and on other artists, but the approach is really different and the thinking behind it is really different. You know?
I love that, because for many people, monetizing your art is the correct path, and that's what they want, that's what they do. But capitalism seems to have the messaging that if you take something seriously, you can only make money from. You take things serious. Help me out with the sentence.
You need to make money if you take it seriously. If you're serious, you need to make money.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the other day, I have a meditation practice that I've had for decades, right? And it's really important to me. And but it's my spiritual practice, but I'm also a songwriter. And I was thinking the other day, I'm like, songwriting for me is a spiritual practice.
Fair.
But I've been trying to monetize it for forever. What songs would I be writing right now had I left it as a spiritual practice?
Would they be different, right?
Would they be different? Would the artwork that's around us, what would it be like if it was someone's spiritual practice for multiple decades versus just trying to break into the market?
It's a different vibe, right?
Different
vibe, and being in that flow state is what's so yum.
Yeah.
When you're there is that state that you get into when you're in it, and that's why people like making things and like showing things and like expressing themselves, because it's like your one true conduit. That's like you're the only one who could ever do that in the whole world. Totally. So it's very valuable in that sense, right? But putting $1 on that is a challenge. And sometimes not necessary. And so like when I do artist consultations, I definitely always have a conversation about goals at first. What is the goal here? Do you want to be at the Venice Biennale, or do you want to make a certain amount of money? Do you need to make any money on this?
Define the goals.
Sure. And there's so many ways of getting to the goalpost. And there's lots of creative ways of getting to the goalpost and when you're a creative person, beyond just your creative practice. Your business practice can also be creative.
Can you tell me if there is one or two the most common challenges or things that you see that get in the way for artists between their art and monetization?
There's lots of things. I mean, having a plan and having proper business infrastructure is a major one, right? Not having access to mentors or to funding or to startup funding is also a challenge for artists. You look at any country that is funded artist living wage, it's so successful. Like, what a thing. Everyone should be doing this. It makes money.
Exactly.
Because it does. You give people the opportunity that there's not that pressure and they can just be in that flow state. The things that come out of a community like that is incredible. And what a gift for community and what a gift for everybody, right?
That's right.
And so I think that there's programs like that we can look at. But I also think that there's this really interesting self-defeating conversation that happens with artists. A lot about what you were talking about, like, well, I don't really matter if I don't really do it this way. But that's the same as everything. Like, I am queer and I love being queer because I get to queer everything. And that's like a gift that we get to give the whole world, is like, look at the world in a way that is skewed. Why not? Like, take the language of the norm and tip it. And what does that look like for you? And how does it serve you?
Oh,
you
I
know,
love
we are
that.
late stage capitalism. They're not
Yeah.
even selling us real stuff anymore.
No, exactly.
You know, like you get a movie, you don't even own it. It's just the
Yeah.
rights to maybe see it on a certain streaming platform, right? Like
That's right.
this
Yeah.
is fake news.
Yeah,
So
we're here.
if we are here to build meaning, and we are here, we're in a construct also, being mean to yourself about it or about where you've gotten is also not serving you well. And artists are very hard on themselves. I've
Yeah.
had lots of conversations like that. So.
It sounds like as a consultant, you also wear many hats. You know,
For sure.
You're wearing the business strategist hat, but also the therapist hat at times, the life coach hat.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's always something that I brought to my work. So I am like the executive director here, but I've also ran lab projects on the side with like several colleagues out here on Vancouver Island called Creative Coast. We've run lots of studies and stuff through that way. I also just concluded here at Tosh a $250,000 grant for queer creatives. And so we actually built hubs all across Vancouver Island. About 724 artists went through these different hubs. Everything from songwriting to how to write a business plan to just make amends. This was a program that was funded by the federal government to just say, like, how can we better support queer creatives?
Wow, incredible.
So it was an incredible program, but it really showed me too that like there's so much power in community, and there's so much power in gathering with folks who can teach you things. We're really fortunate here in Qualicum Beach to live in the oldest postcode in Canada. So per capita, maybe Parksville's got one up on us now. It goes between Parksville and Qualicum Beach, but really like the oldest per median age, right? So most folks who live here in Qualicum are 65 plus.
Right.
That's been so incredible for me. And when I talk about intergenerationality, it is more about the connectivity of folks who are around our age with those 80-year-olds as opposed to like a 5-year-old in those ages, which that intergenerationality is also important. It's important that community arts organization caters to that huge range, right?
Yeah.
But when we talk about community connectivity and like owning it, and also when you talk about artists and seeing what's possible, I think having those elder mentors is so great and intentional, because you can see like what people do with this time in their life, right? A lot of artwork is made in that age.
That's
like
right.
when you look at the art history canon, a lot of work is made in that older age because you're like, you don't care as much about the society. You have a 10,000 hour theory in your hands. So you know what you want to make, and your time is up. You're like ready to, you're in your third act. This is what you want to make. And so a lot of work gets made in that age that is exceptionally good.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that, because it's not just about, you know, you have extra hours to spend. You have a lot of people come into that stage of their life knowing what they wanted to do and knowing that they were pushing it aside year
Always,
after year.
right? Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, there they are, and they
Time
can
and
grab
money.
it full.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
But time and money is really the equation for most artists, right? Do I have
Absolutely.
the time to do what I need to do? Do I have the money I need to do?
Yeah.
And, you know, that's why residency is incredible if you're an artist.
Yeah,
Right?
talk to me about residency at Tosh. Yeah.
So we have an artist program here that's just studio rentals. That's our residency program here. So folks are local. They share studio spaces. They're here every day when we're open. So we have 16 to 19 artists at a time. Not every day, but in each of their studios. So you get to see art being produced here all the time. Just open studios, you can come in and visit. It's Tuesday 10 to 4, and there's always working artists in the building.
Tuesday 10 to 4, I could be here and walk into one of these artists' studios.
That's right.
While they work? Or they
Yeah,
work?
they're all working. It's free to come here, free to chat with people. We have
Very
everybody
cool.
from textile artists to pastel artists, people working in sculpture. We have a dark room downstairs, so we have photographers here. So it's a really vibrant like art center in that sense that folks are always here and working and people can always visit. But then when you think about the community of artists and what is needed for folks to be able to come to their oeuvre, like you often need to be in community. This idea that we make work in a silo is like the old man painting in the attic is so rare and not true
Absolutely.
to how art works, and not even how contemporary studios work. I mean, there's a lot of production that goes into contemporary art studios and that goes into the making of work and the thinking of work that is
absolutely.
not done by yourself.
Yeah.
You know, so
100%.
community matters.
Yeah, great art has often comes out of community.
Yeah,
often.
definitely.
And so when you did make that move to Qualicum Beach, which is such a unique place to
Yeah.
move to, can you remember, was there a moment when you thought, yes, I made the right choice?
Oh, I mean, just coming here and the climate and everything was incredible.
Yeah,
I mean, that was a good one.
Just the environment.
The environment's just beautiful. But secondarily to that, it was like, I felt like, again, what I said, that like there is value in what I could bring to the table and what I could provide as far as knowledge. I'm part of a first wave of arts administrators that is really coming on the island. Some of my colleagues, like the person whose exhibition we're in right now, Carly Butler, was the ED, the executive director for the Tofino Arts Council. She's trained in London. My friend Jenny, her last name's Casey now, Jennifer Casey, is up at Comox Valley Arts Council. She's my friend from Chicago. Okay. She also has a master's in education. So we're specifically trained for these jobs. Like, I've only been an arts administrator for 20 plus years. Right. I've been running arts businesses. Yeah. And so that comes with really specialized knowledge. It comes with a really specific interest in how things work, how grants work, how the funding works, and also how community's built. You know, curators have a lot of power, which I think people forget, that there's power in picking and in getting to show people and getting to show what things are. There's 35,000 artists on Vancouver Island. You know, that means that there's a lot of artwork out here. It's not just watercolor landscapes. And so as administrators, it's up to us to provide a really nuanced conversation about what art is and the gamut of what it takes, right? To the delight and not delight of our community. You know, there is art that we don't like, and I'm so stoked when people stop me in the grocery store and they're raging about a show we had a couple years ago because they didn't like it, and I'm like, I just love this for you, and they're so upset, and I'm like, yes, you have an opinion.
That art made you feel something,
right? And I think that there's this idea that like art is always this like easy thing to digest, or that we don't need to feel it, or that it's just delightful. And yes, like beauty is the antidote to horror. Like engaging in the arts is the antidote to the horrific things that happen in the world, right? There has to be like a balance of that. So I understand that, but it also is something that like makes us think, and you know, all the rest. Francis P. Cabia, who's an incredible painter, said, our heads are round so our thoughts can change direction.
Love that.
And I always love that, because I was like, oh yeah, it is. It's such a thing that it's like I think most people have had an experience with some type of work or some type of visual that they remember so succinctly in their mind, and that changed profoundly how they think about things. You know, and whether that's like advertising, or whether that's something you see online, whether that's something you see on a wall, like, but it does change you in a way. Yeah.
And I think maybe that could be part of the reason why it's so easy at times for people to devalue art, is because a lot of the effect that art's had on them is unconscious.
Yes,
you know,
definitely.
And it's almost like oxygen. You don't really know how important it is until it's gone.
That's exactly it. You know? I think that it's easier to picture a day with nothing in it and then be horrified than it is to think about how many aesthetic decisions you make or you're part of every single day, right? Because that's, I think, a big part of it too. It is unconscious.
Yeah, a lot of it would be. So I think it's pretty obvious all the benefits and assets that you would have brought with you from your experience in New York. Was there anything that you had to let go of or shed from your New York way of thinking about this business and industry when you got to Qualicum?
For sure, absolutely. You know, this is a very established organization. It's been around for 40 years. Right. And community thinks about their institutions in certain ways. And so it's been really interesting to have to like push up against people's expectations, and also kind of lead with that sort of open door policy that this is arts for all and that everybody is actually welcome here. You know, Qualicum First Nations has a show every other year here, and we do queer events here, and you know, we have programs for youths and we have programs for seniors, and like this is a welcoming place for everyone. And I think that is sometimes an interesting juggle to have. Like, I think that, you know, you made it well, like you've done well when people are telling you you're too woke and not woke enough at the same time. You know? And it's like perfect. Everybody's mad.
Everyone's mad.
Awesome, you know? And that was a big shock for me, actually, though, was really just how, I mean, it's fantastic how engaged folks are in this community, and obviously they are we have a lot of retired folks who are very engaged, so they have time to be engaged. But I was also really surprised by the vitriol that happens too.
Yeah.
Like there is a lot of like passive aggressive kind of commentary that sometimes happens in Canada that I wasn't privy to in the States, which I thought was really interesting.
Really?
Like in the States, people are just straight up aggressive. They'll just be mean to your face. And here, like someone's neighbor will call you and be like, so-and-so is quite upset with you. And you're like,
right.
what? You know, so that's interesting.
Undercover.
But yeah, but I think the more, I mean, I've been here for 7 years, and I think that the longer I stay, the more people realize that this is their house. You know, this house is their house.
Yeah.
And this is the community's house. And it's up to the community to fund it and to ask for what they need from this place, but it's also a place where we can engage together on what happens. So,
yeah, that sounds like a lesson that would take time for the community to learn.
And for me to learn too. Oh my goodness, right? Like I really thought that I mean, my favorite thing is contemporary art. I come from a contemporary art background, and I dealt in contemporary art for a long time. I love it. It's so interesting, this idea that art is an idea and that it's more like a patent than it is an object, and that we can still have beautiful things that aren't objects is a really fun thing to trip around on. But I also realized that what an organization like this brings value to in this kind of ecosystem is for that many artists, when you look at the infrastructure that's available on this island, it's so small. And so what I mean by that is that we actually have just published on our website an asset map. It's an infrastructure asset map of all the organizations that deal with the arts on Vancouver Island.
Oh, cool.
So it's like a little data project that I did to show people where are all the artists on the island, like where are all the arts organizations on the island. It's not an endless list, so if there's anything missing, send us an email, because it's like obviously iterative. But it really gives a snapshot. There's like maybe 300 organizations on all of Vancouver Island.
Right.
For 35,000 artists, that's not that many. And then if you start reducing that between what's a museum, what's a for-profit gallery, what's a not-for-profit gallery, the actual places that you can apply to exhibit as a regional artist are very few.
Yeah, that's right.
It comes down to maybe 5 or 6. And because they are so few, that makes organizations like this that are access points incredibly important to the ecosystem. Because how do you ever if you never get an exhibition as an emerging artist, your first exhibition, then how do you qualify for Canada Council's CARFAC fees to be able to get into touring places like Nanaimo Art Gallery, Vancouver Art Gallery, the National Art Gallery? You have to have a first step. And we're losing that first step in most places in Canada. There's very, very few places for regional artists to show.
So how do you navigate that in your consulting side of things when an artist is looking to expand and monetize, and there are so few places for them to show their art? What is the answer there?
Well, it's really like that becomes more specifically tailored to the individual, right? Are we all do we all need to be showing and exhibiting artists, or are you looking for commercial art gallery opportunities, or are you like there's a few different pathways when you're an individual artist to go, right? But for the whole ecosystem in general, and for Canada's funding in general, that becomes like a very important thing, especially as we make artists jump over next hurdles for granting money.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be able to supplement the system.
And of course, there's new artists born every day too. So how does a place like Tosh create an environment that's accessible to both the artists who've been doing it for years and years and the ones who are just coming up?
Definitely. There's a big difference between emerging and established artists, right? And then also, like, to be realistic, a lot of the very established artists are exporting. They're not actually selling work here on the island or here in Canada. They are international artists that are shipping things away. Right. Which is a big loss for Canada, I have to say. That's like a big misstep in the Canadian system if we're really looking at it, because that's a lot of missed opportunity for us to support Canadian businesses. But here at Tosh in particular, like, we have so many opportunities. We have membership exhibitions. So if you're a member here and you're from anywhere on Vancouver Island as a region, you can apply for those shows. So those are on your CV. You can get into them. They're accessible. Yeah. We also have a Tosh Art Prize that's coming next year. So it's very similar to like Super Fine Art, but it's much smaller. Tiny. New little prize. Cool. But the first prize for that's $1,500.
Great.
And then there's a few other cash prizes for folks. So there's those kind of opportunities. And then I run an exhibition call every year for in 2 years. So right now I'll be running in the fall an exhibition call for 2028.
Okay.
And so anyone can apply. I jury them in. I am the curator here. I do make those decisions. Don't bother bringing me an orchid. It won't work. But how I try and program is really with this sensibility in mind. We know that there's no place for emerging artists. They need to be able to learn and bring themselves into this world. But also we need places for mid-career artists and emerging artists, advanced artists. So we show a gamut of artists. And what I try and do is create relationship between artist galleries. We have 3 exhibition galleries that show at a time. And I try and create curatorial conversation that's going to enhance our program in terms of enhance each individual's artist's work and their sales. We sell work here. And it's right now a 50-50 split for the artists, which is better than a commercial gallery, but not 100% for the artist, but we do have an admin to take care of. But then it also teaches artists how to come into the gallery program, how to run a show, that sort of thing. And then also an audience how to look. And so all 3 of these exhibitions that are currently in our space are all about place. And they're all about what it means to be somewhere. And so we're right now in this gallery with Carly Butler's work, which is a lot about navigation and sort of being in that middle space. The next gallery over has David Vecht called it Being in Cumberland, and it's all about people in Cumberland. Baxter Redfern shows these great drone photography in our smallest gallery that are all like from the shorelines and from just all around here, Qualicum. And so the curatorial question for these 3 galleries was, what does it mean to be somewhere? What does it mean to be situated somewhere? And so while the work might not be parallel, the themes and the conversation is parallel. We try to do those kind of connectivity for people.
Very cool. And so in your consulting, you had mentioned that really defining goals is an important part of the process. Do you feel that the goals of Tosh have been well defined, and what are they?
For sure. I mean, we've just engaged, I have a fantastic board, and there's incredible volunteers that work here too. Like, I don't want to make it seem like I'm a silo. Like, I always say we're all an island, but we can archipelago. So nobody's alone, really.
We're all alone together.
We're all alone together. We're working on this together. So it's by no means a single effort. This is a huge group effort. An organization like this is a huge group effort. And our volunteers and the community are so supportive and come out. And we have more than 60 volunteers here. They gave over 1,500 hours in less than a year. Like, people are very dedicated, and we're very grateful for their time and their expertise. So our board has just developed a strategic plan for the next 3 years. We actually have an AGM on the 25th of June, so folks can come out and see what the results of that strategic plan are. It's very much based on the things we've already been talking about, accessibility and arts for all, but also like, financial resilience and making sure that we have this kind of asset in the community. When we receive no operating fund from anywhere, this becomes quite fraught to make sure the doors stay open, right?
So what is there no operating funding coming in? Is there?
No, we don't have an operating fund from any level of government. So normally how it works is that a municipality would give you some money. I'm sure you know the numbers from Nanaimo Art Gallery. I think that they get around $400,000 from their municipality, which is great support and equivalent. That's not the case here. So we have been granted a one-time funding support from last year, which we're really grateful for from the town, to be able to further our efforts here, especially because we act sort of as a visitor center. But beyond that, not having that operating support makes it really interesting for us.
That is,
and certainly something we're in conversation with and campaigning for.
Would you say that is one of the main challenges of running this?
Absolutely. If you don't have regular funding, then you're relying on programming funding. And I do write grants, and I receive a lot of programming funding because the hustle is real. Like, I think I wrote 13 grants last year. And we received 2 or 3 of them. Granting is also shrinking, right? But in the past 7 years, I think I've probably raised over $1 million for the Vancouver Island arts ecosystem. In the arts, that's, that seems like a lot, but it actually isn't when you trace it over that many years and what programs we brought, right? So we've done creative tourism papers. We've done the first ever data study on the arts with several other arts councils on the island. We ran a tech hub. So what does it mean if artists have access to technology? We've just done this queerpreneur program. I also run a docent program for seniors. So our senior volunteers are trained in docent language and trained with how to present things. And then we've also managed to bring in fantastic speakers and people to talk. In 2 weeks, I have an incredible holographer coming.
Wow.
Yeah, so she makes holograms. She's also archiving a huge collection of holograms in Chicago. She makes
hologram. That's really cool.
And she lives right here. I mean, these people are just all these people in your
here.
neighborhood, you know?
And I guess that's the thing with project grants too, is that there are expenses that are incurred with projects. Yeah. It's not that the granting is built so that you have this money left over, a big treasure trove left over that you can use for operations or anything. No, it is not how it works.
Nonprofit arts is not happening that way, which is unfortunate, because I think that actually if we took a look at the nonprofit structures like that and we gave organizations better opportunities for investment and for long-term longevity of funds and really like a business-minded practice, we would be better off for sure.
Yeah. Can you talk to me about what percentage of the pie, of the Tosh pie, is funded through grants and through the various other streams?
Absolutely, yeah. At the moment, our community is really coming out for us.
Yeah.
And that is really what is fueling things happening here. It's like private donations and legacy donations that are left to us. Like those are so incredibly valuable for us and let us do this kind of work. We also get individual program sponsors, right? So we run a teen drop-in. Yeah. So the RDN and our Rotary, Qualicum Beach, thank you, Rotary Qualicum Beach, funds those kind of programs. The fabulous Burns Family Foundation is running our music program for 4 concerts a year, sort of thing. So it really comes down to just individuals stepping up for that sort of funding, and then what we make here in-house. So every sale of any artwork, a sale of any class, a big chunk of that is going to a working artist, and the rest of it's coming here for us to recycle into the community.
Okay, great. Yeah. And you're saying that during COVID, as many of us, did our pivot, you moved a lot of this online.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, it was also a time when we had to try to get people to go online to do the things that they were so used to doing in person.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I bet you that was an adventure.
Everything's an adventure here, right?
But then I imagine that after the COVID has come and gone, if it has, who knows anymore.
Yeah, right?
But to try to get people back out in real life is a whole nother adventure.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that?
For sure. I'll have to just take one step back from that, though, is that I came in 2019, just a little bit before COVID happened, but this organization had no Wi-Fi. There was no real internet in the building. There was like a 10-year-old computer hardwired to the wall. And when I called to switch it over, the girl was like, "This is internet from the 90s. Like, how do you have this?"
No kidding.
See, I'm also from the
Did you go like this?
Right? I was like, okay. We actually have a switchboard still on our phone downstairs. When I need to get that repaired, this guy comes with his vintage parts and repairs it. So this is a 119-year-old building. That was the infrastructure that was here, right? And so I engaged very quickly in a digitization process. We had over 2,500 objects that we were selling as consignment when I got here, and so we digitized everything. And then COVID, what did happen with COVID was that we lost a lot of our older volunteers. Like, not lost them, they passed more that they didn't want to volunteer anymore, which makes sense. People don't want to be in the public. Nope. And so and then I think that there's a shift in volunteer mentality now and people's time and money and what they have time for, So that was a big shift for us. But then folks have been coming back. People don't love being online all the time. No. And so our classes are really full and people are engaging, which is fantastic.
That's great.
We are always quite busy. And Qualicum's an interesting place because they basically roll up the sidewalk at 5 p.m. You can't, there's nothing. It's just tumbleweeds and you can be by yourself in the middle of nowhere in the town. And so having that sort of after hours programming is going to be something really interesting that we are starting to bring in because it's real need out here in this community. You just hear the doors opening and closing. But there's always an opportunity to expand, I would say, but it's really interesting to like operate in that sort of thing when you're talking about digitizing, and for me, more than just digitizing, data collection has been a really important part of what we do.
Sure.
And the stories that we tell, which I think that folks are not, it's really interesting. Like we go to school and we learn math and English and art and everything else, but nobody teaches us about data. And then we're launched into this world that is so data heavy, that everyone's collecting our data, that what is data? Like nobody knows. It's like this thing that exists, but we're like, it's the underpinning of everything that we do. And so to me, it's also been really important to talk about that and to also collect that data, not just like in terms of visitors and dollars, but also like, what does this place mean to us and how do we tell that story better? And for me, it's a data collection problem.
Yeah, okay. And I guess that data collection problem or data collection solution is also what brings more people in at the end of the day.
Exactly,
and how you
right?
can expand. And,
Totally.
and in terms of how many people, you know, this afternoon, let's say, if there's, let's say, I have no idea, but let's say 50 people walk through the door.
Yep.
How many of those people are Qualicum Beach locals?
We're a lot. We do operate, this is a year-round facility. And so we do operate workshops and classes. We have 80 workshops and classes that are happening all year long.
Wow.
So we have programming in this building all year long, and I can't say that there used to be kind of a dip in the winter where things were quieter, and that has not been happening for years. People come here, people use this as a community art center. This house is their house, and they are here. So our population here in Qualicum is about 9,000, like with area. We get about 15,000 plus visitors a year. Our website gets 110,000 visitors a year. So people are looking at that website, but it's busy here. And then when we hit summer, peak summer times, it gets even busier. We have a lot of visitors here. The old school house is like this beautiful, historic, charming building in a gingerbread village. People come from all over to come and see it. It's gorgeous. It's so nice to be here. And it's also quite a charming venue. It's a charming venue to show art in as well, because it's so intimate and personal, and it's kind of like walking through somebody's living room. It feels like that, and our staff are very welcoming. Our volunteers are very welcoming. We want you to feel like it is like that.
Yeah, and it does feel like that, while at the same time, the art is such high quality art that it's like walking into your own living room, but you've got the best art all on your walls.
That's the point, right? I mean, with 35,000 artists, if you're not showing good art, I mean, it's just not.
You're not looking.
But also this like next level, like, have you seen something you haven't seen before? And I think that that's been an interesting work for me as a curator, is to really start to shift the conversation of what is art and what can be presented as artwork, and how do we view artwork, and what does it do to our brain? You know, we're in this digital soup all the time, and I think that it erodes our visual trust over time, because we're just scrolling. The best thing you can do to slow your attention span, which we all know is shrinking, grow your attention span, but slow your mind down so you can have a bigger attention span, is actually to look at art. To look at art in person. So when we talk about what's the difference between like being on a screen and what are you missing, it's that. And it is one of the best things for growing your attention span. When people are like, oh, we have distracted kids, we bring them to art galleries, bring them to see art.
Oh, I love that.
Bring yourself to see art, you know, turn off your phone and come and just look at the stuff.
That's great.
You know,
it does I could do more of that too.
Right? It does something to your body. It's really incredible. It does something to your health. It does something to your body.
So, I mean, nonprofits are typically, funding is one of the greatest challenges.
For sure.
If you had unlimited funds, what would you do?
Oh, that's such a good question. What wouldn't I do? Well, we'd have enough staff to run this place, right? Okay. The reality is that beyond the extra funding that we got this year, which is the first time in probably 4 or 5 years I've been able to hire staff, I've been working as the sole full-time employee here.
Wow, how are you doing?
Yes. Thank you. Feeling a bird too fine crisp at times. You know, I've definitely had those moments. I think there is that like big ED drain that does happen. As an executive director, that you're sort of at the top of an organization, it's sort of lonely at the top in a weird way that I think folks don't necessarily compute, which, not to complain, it just is a reality.
Yeah, but you're the person that, you know, is kept up at night, even though it takes a team to make everything work.
The buck
it
stops
usually
there.
means that one person's kept up at night.
That's totally it. The buck stops there, you know, and so that's been an interesting learning. I think I forgot the question.
Unlimited funds.
Unlimited funds. See, it was so out there that I forgot about it immediately. I was like, that's just impossible. So I'm never going to even think about it. No, you know, we would be well staffed. And I think that part of being well staffed means that we can also serve our community better. And we can reach out better. Like, community is built on trust and relationships. And you can only move at the speed of that trust. And so to really build significant programming, you also have to build significant trust.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You can only move at the speed of trust.
And that's not mine. I won't take that.
Okay.
You know.
But that is something.
Right?
You can only move at the speed of trust.
You can only move at the speed of trust, and you can only move at the speed of relationship with building that trust. And so it's a little unfortunate we receive programming money that is so contained over, constrained normally over fiscal years, right? Because if you and I wanted to be friends, we're not going to like jump into a friendship. That would be probably like pathological. Like it's probably not a healthy relationship.
No, and we'd have to pretend that we were in a relationship deeper than what was actually
right. There's
true.
so much pretend, and it wouldn't be real, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it wouldn't be trustworthy because you wouldn't actually exhibit that. So it takes time to build those relationships. It takes time to also prove that you are trustworthy to be trusted.
That's right.
And so why would I come and listen to what you have to say about anything, including what I think about this artwork, unless I think that you are somebody who is trustworthy? And so unlimited funds would let us do that, right? Unlimited funds let you have a base of staff that's big enough so that you can like engage with your population enough to provide the services that they are asking for you, and also to then be reflective backwards and improvement. Like, how do we improve? How do we fail and improve?
Absolutely.
How do we fail and improve, right?
Yeah.
But without that kind of funding, it's just a hustle. And I am the queen of the cold call. I am not afraid to pick up the phone and be the weirdo on the end of the line, and I'm also not afraid to be told no. I've been told to F off a million times.
Maybe you're from New York.
You know, and it's like, okay, that's just part of the process. Somebody at once asked me like, what makes a great leader? And I said, being okay with failure and just getting really quick at it. And being okay with being wrong all the time, which also, cool, let's learn better, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So it's a bit of like ego defacing. But if we had lots of money, we would be running, this facility would be primo, I tell you. There would be no bats. Well, I know we're not allowed to move bats. That's a conservation issue. But
the ghosts, you could
the
hire
ghosts.
the best
there you go.
exorcist.
Exactly. We'd exercise the ghosts and stuff like that. But we'd also just, I think the facility would be well maintained. There would be great programming available. There'd be enough staff to hold it, and then this would be real, even more of a community asset than it already is.
Absolutely.
It's really about building cultural infrastructure. And I think that's a conversation that doesn't happen often enough, there's all these artists, they have economic value, but really, how do you support them? Well, unless you have a building to be in, it's really hard, right? But then paying for that building and keeping it open and everything else becomes its own thing.
Does Tosh own this building?
We do not. We rent this building.
Rent this building, okay. And how is that? How's that tenancy look? Is it, or rather the lease, is it a long-term lease? Or?
Yeah, we have a long-term lease and a great relationship in terms of that.
So you're good, not going anywhere.
Yeah, no, this is here.
But if you did have unlimited funds, would you purchase the building? Is that?
Who knows? Yeah. That isn't even a decision for me, that's above my pay grade. It's for our volunteers to decide. But I don't know. I think that it's great that this is owned by the town and this is a community asset. And it would be great if they came to the table and really saw that too,
Yeah.
It certainly is.
And it is such a unique place to have an asset like this. You know, it really is, like, I feel the word gem is almost minimizing the power that I feel for this place.
Yeah, it's really
but
nice.
But it really is special. It really
is. And it's a real hub, I think, for the island. When you think of it, like, mid-island is like, we do a lot of this cutting up and siloing, especially when we talk about tourism and when we talk about numbers and stuff, that cuts it really north-south all the time. But for me, I see like pathways to connection as east-west as well. So for me, Qualicum Beach is like the cocktail bar, and then you have an appetizer in Port Alberni and the main meal in Tofino. Right? And that's how we run a lot of our programming, is this like hub models that are connective all across the island. So I talk to folks all across the island all the time to do programming like this.
Very cool. And if you could imagine, just as a mental experiment, you picked up the old schoolhouse art center and you dropped it somewhere else, let's say New York, would it do as well as it's doing now, or would it do better? What would be different about it?
I mean, having regular operating funding anywhere is going to be better, right? But I think that it's also so special to this place. Everywhere is special to a place, right? Like, the reason that this building looks the way it looks is because the community that was here. And so I don't know that it would definitely be different if it was somewhere else, as would anything else. Like a historic house with historic house with an incredible collection. We're not a collecting organization. We only show work, so we don't own a collection. But yeah, this kind of model can work in other places. A lot of places actually on Vancouver Island use old school houses as art centers.
That's right, yeah.
You know, so Salt Spring has that.
Yeah,
Parksville,
that's right.
just next door, has the McMillan Art
I
Center.
think Calgary did that as well.
Yeah,
didn't
you
they?
know, so it's not like an unheard thing to like do that, although the wall space is not necessarily ideal and requires some imagination.
And on the topic of imagination, you're obviously a very creative person. Do you have an arts background outside of arts administration? Do you?
My own art practice.
Yeah, your own art practice.
Oh, do I admit it or not? I actually, my first degree is in anthropology,
Yeah.
and then I have my master's in art business. So I went to NYU for arts administration, but I also got to go to Stern School of Business, Wagner School of Public Policy, kind of like dip around in there. So I do have a really strong business background. I do have a creative practice.
You do?
It's so funny when you're like in it I feel like I could probably put my work out if I used my bowling name, which is Cookie Grimaldi, you know? And so...
This is your bowling name?
Yeah, so if I could go through my alter ego and sort of do it that way, I might be more open with my practice. But I feel like I know what it takes to be a successful artist, and I'm very comfortable with having my work be something that I quietly do as a hobby for now.
That's great.
Yeah.
And at the same time, not that you asked for it, but quiet and hobby don't necessarily need to go together.
Fair, totally, right? I'm like self-defeating prophecy right there. I'm like, don't tell.
Oh, that's great. It reminds me of, there's so many times, like a web designer who's helped people create the absolutely
it has
gorgeous
the
web
worst
designers, but
website.
one day they will get to their website.
Yeah, it's totally like that.
Not necessarily the same.
Well, it's like you dip in and out of it. I think that this idea that we constantly produce as creative people is a fallacy. Like, you can't pull from an empty cup. And
100%.
And what field doesn't lie fallow? Like, even when we're talking about agriculture and cultivation, right? And so I think that we're really hard on ourselves as creatives to like produce all the time, but we don't take into account that you need to have time to recalibrate and construct. And so my work is so busy. I am incredibly busy administratively and with all these sorts of projects and supporting other people that sometimes like that is a bit empty. I'm also, a single mom and, I'm gay and I live on my own with my kids. So it's sort of like, where does the juggle happen, right?
I love that, yeah.
But instead of taking a stance, it's like, I'll never be that, or I won't want to be that, then we can just be like, well, that is a time. I'm also like a cataloger of things, constant cataloger of people and cataloger of experiences. And I think 100%. I'm like, at least there was a story in it.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of my strengths as a curator too, is like really talking about people's stories. And there's something about the creative practice in that. And I think what you're doing here too, like having all these conversations with folks has to supplement your creative passion.
100%.
But it's really hard to articulate it as your work. Like this is actually art.
Yeah.
The art is this mental gymnastics.
Yeah.
And
I'm not really, of course, I don't know what kind of art like is part of your practice. But I get the sense that whatever it is does mimic the way that you are in life in general too, and your approach to. I mean, you mentioned that you, what did you say? Contemporary? No. What kind of art do you love?
Contemporary art.
Contemporary art. Yeah,
it's artist ideas, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I just hearing you talk about your philosophy around a business, about staying open, about how this is a soft place to have hard conversations.
Yeah.
It all feels like it is art for you. Yeah.
It is. And I think that that's like part of it. Is like I've been in this, not old, but I've been doing this for more than half my life. And I've been around artists more than half my life and always wanted to support them for whatever purposes, but it was always because I wanted to be adjacent to that flow state. Like I wanted to be adjacent to that magic. It's so exciting.
Yeah,
and when you can really tap into that for yourself, and when you can really support people in being in that state for themselves, it's really transformative and incredible to like exist in that world and think about that space. And I've also, I'm kind of quite a nerd and I'm like quite well read. I mean, I also think about the mental gymnastics of it, like the thinking about our thoughts and the like that metaphysical like on top of things, philosophy style. What does this mean? And for me, it's always been part of like that. If all of my life is a practice and an art practice, then it's all like that capital W, the work, right? And I also believe in like being in service to relationship and in service to my community and the people that are around me, right? That's part of my impetus to do this work.
Yes.
So it all kind of like, it's really interesting when you start to like trace the lines of like what is a practice versus not, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
But that is something that I will tell your viewers and tell you is that like I don't believe in the word piece to describe something that you make. We never call it a piece because it could be a piece of anything. Right. We always call it the work.
The work.
So if you see somebody's artwork, you always call it a work. Or you see a painting, you don't say, oh, he created a piece. You say, it's a work.
Yeah, it's a work.
And with your work too, you call it the work. And the reason we do this is because we do live in a capitalistic mainframe and we do have to queer it. And so we have to speak in the language of the norm, right? And so we have to say like, well, it's the work because it is capitalistic, it is an output, but also so that it has value.
That's right.
And we bring inner value to this when we talk about it like that.
Yeah, what a great way to just start the redefinition process.
Yeah, internally even, right? Like if artists are speaking internally about the things that they make with the same value as a spreadsheet.
Right.
And really give it that value and understanding that like it becomes transformative, right?
So I mean, the value that your business acumen has brought to artists, that's clear. Has there been, you're working around artists all the time, has that flown the other way too, where has being around artists given you a new perspective on any element of business? No,
for sure. I think that sometimes it's not about how much money you can make. Sometimes it's more important for it to be impactful to a person or impactful in a different way, right? The Queerpreneur program that we just ran funded a ton of queer organizations all across Vancouver Island to be able to do this sort of practice and engage with their creatives. And to me, that was an accessibility piece that was not something that I had thought about. Like, I think people know what I know.
Right.
And I'm like, wait, what? You don't know?
Yeah.
Which, that's so great. I get to share that with folks. But it also means that people come to you and they're like, oh, you know, I have never had this experience before. Like, I've never been to a restaurant before. Or I've never gotten to do this before. No one's ever spoken to me about my artwork before.
Right.
And just getting to provide that opportunity for an individual and see an individual and how connective it is for them becomes, that's the work. That's so valuable. And I think that that's something that's taught me that it isn't really we have to keep this place going because of that. We have to keep this place going because it's important in that way. And so when we talk about like this, does it make money or not? Sometimes it's not about the money, but it's hard because we do live in this society where we have to pay for things. Yeah,
there are bills.
But at the end of the day, that informs the business practice too, because sometimes here we make a lot of decisions that are not fiscally wise, right, and are risky, but because it does good. It does good for the community. It does good for children. It does good. Like we provide bursaries for our summer camps to single moms or immigrant parents or anyone who reaches out and says that they need it. Yeah. And that does not make us money.
Right. No.
But it's really important, right? It's really important that a kid has an incredible camp experience in the summer and that gets to have access to like a teaching artist that's a professional artist to show them something different.
And do you feel that that's one of the main positives for the nonprofit model? You know, because I'm thinking about an organization like this, could it survive, or what would it look like to survive as a private company? Yeah. And usually the conversations around what's fiscally prudent become sort of the North Star of the organization, and to do something experimental or impactful that may not, you know, bring a very strong revenue stream. It's just like not even a conversation. It's like, well, we can't. Totally. We're not doing that. You know? But in the nonprofit world, there are grants and streams that will fund. Totally. And then, you know, and that's why people support this kind of place, you know, and that's why philanthropy becomes incredibly important. And I think that that's the piece that's just missing, is that I don't think enough people know that they keep this place open. Right. That this is their community space to keep open. And that's sort of like the philanthropy misstep in all of Canada, that like nonprofits aren't getting this big tax break
they're not getting a ton of support in certain ways,
Yeah.
and that they really rely on that to provide the service. And this is a service that you think is valuable and that you care about. Become a monthly donor.
Yeah.
You know, stop by and give us $100. Like those make such a huge difference because they aggregate over time.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a small thing that as an individual we can do, but as a group, when we come together and we're doing it together, then we provide that service for all of us. And then we have this third space to all come
100%.
together and we can keep it going, you know, that kind of model.
Yeah.
You know.
Now, you like the way that you speak and like who you are, you're just oozing with knowledge about
that's kind.
about this space. No, and it feels like it's just so natural for you that it, I think somebody who's been invested in this space for so long, it feels like it's a part of you. Like you came into this world with that knowledge. But of course, that's not how knowledge works.
Yeah,
we gather it
fair.
along the way.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you wish you had known at the beginning of your adventure into this space that you know now?
For sure. Definitely. I mean, I'm a hustler. I'm from Calgary. Like I have entrepreneurial parents who ran their own business. I was like doing filing when I was 8 years old, you know, and then when I was in New York, I put together an artist collective. Like I hustled, my first curatorial opportunities were in bars. Like I installed lighting track systems in bars in our area. I lived in Bushwick, which was like hipster capital of the world. And so like, I've always had this like sort of bootstrap idea about how things get done and also wherewithal to do them and I don't know, I just am a bit of a beast and just get things done. It was a real learning curve to come into a place that was so established and to change it in certain ways so that it was more equitable for the entire community.
Yeah.
You know, because I think that belief is a really interesting thing. I think that belief in things, I'm not an ageist, and so I don't think that it's an age thing that people get like more closed
Set
off
in
as
their
they
ways.
as they get older. I don't think that's the case, but I do think that when belief calcifies around something, when someone comes in with a different value set, it creates a break in belief, and that's scary, right? Breaking is scary. But bending is not. And so when you come into an organization that's already established, you have to do a lot more bending than breaking. But you also have to make an omelet. Right? And so it's like this constant push-pull of like, how far can I pull this while still pulling everyone with me? And I got very much accused when I first got here of like eating the whole elephant. And folks who are older than me were always like, I need a whole elephant, like you gotta pace yourself. And I was just like, I'm trying. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I should have eaten that so much slower. You know, and this idea of pace too, like that was a huge, I think that was my biggest culture shock moving to Vancouver Island was pace.
Of course,
because things in New York happen quickly, and also I think quickly. And so I could see the end goal of where I wanted to get to and what needed to get there. But I wanted it done like yesterday because I already thought of it.
That's right.
And it took us about a little under a year to digitize here.
Right.
And for me, that was agonizingly slow.
Right.
And
But
I
really,
wish
that's
in
fairly
hindsight it had taken 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Because in hindsight, I've been like, oh, then those relationships built in trust would have been brought forward in the way, right? And folks who aren't comfortable using an iPad or digitizing things would have had more time to adapt, right?
Yeah, what do we lose when we move too quickly?
It's like that. It's a speed of trust, I'm telling you. But these are
Speed
all
of
like,
trust.
right? And then these are all like good learnings, you know? And
Yeah.
I do take that ethos and that mentality, especially with leadership and with my team, is that like, this is good learning. And these people are our teachers.
Yeah.
And there's often times when I'm like, yeah, my teacher, because you're like, yeah, I don't like what you said. There's that too, you know, we don't always have to get along, but we always have to be respectful.
That's right.
And be civil. And that to me is really important, you know. And then I always like, it's a bit funny. Someone, like when I first got here, there was a bit of outrage about something that I had changed. We have a resident artist program that didn't have any way of anyone getting into it. So it was just, you were grandfathered in and then you could just have the studio till you died. And when I came in, I brought a lottery model. And so you have to apply and then we pull it out of the hat and you get your studios. And so that program has worked for several years now. But when I first brought it in, it was quite upsetting for folks, you know, and some people were like, oh, you're sucking the life out of this place. And I was like, but does it come with a bendy straw? Because if not, I'm probably not. That doesn't sound like a good time. You know, but people are like, they don't like to hear that, you know, and since then folks have all come around and we've all seen eye to eye on things.
Yeah, but that's tough, isn't it? Because it's, I mean, again, time.
Yeah.
But there's inevitably a period when you come out of a state that's just been, that is got roots deeply in the ground. There's going to be a period of time where everyone's going to say, oh, look, see, I told you so, this isn't working.
Totally.
Because that's what change looks like, transition.
And it's actually, there's a beautiful chart that shows a nonprofit life cycle, because nonprofits move through that life cycle. This idea that nonprofits are static entities is also incorrect. It's also an organic entity, right? Like any business is an organic entity in a way, because it's run by people. Like it's not run by machines. We made it. And so there is this life cycle where you go from founder all the way to the end of a life cycle, and then you actually go back to this point. Every organization, especially organizations that are 4 years old, has to have a reckoning of like, do we matter to the community we're serving? Are we doing the right things to serve that community?
A little midlife crisis for an organization.
Totally. So I came right at that time, which I love for me, you know? And also just that idea too, that like Vancouver Island, especially this community, is also a bit stuck in time sometimes, you know? And so priorities that we have in New York that were just commonplace, here they thought were quite radical or revolutionary.
Interesting.
And I was like, well, this is what organizations have been doing for the past decade. This is not new news. And also like, I didn't invent this. It's not, I didn't come up with this. This is actually,
that's right,
you know, business practice in nonprofits. And so, you know, bringing that up to speed and stuff. But we're at a place where we're there. You know, we have a strategic plan. There's business processes. We are very professional, although we seem very casual and creative. We're also very friendly, but we are all professionals in what we do. So things are working behind the scenes, and it's going places.
Well done.
It's fun.
Really well done. So I have one final question for you. What is important to you?
What is important?
What is important to you? Not what was important to you or what was important to you a month ago. Right now, this week, what's important to you?
I think it's that that people feel seen in being themselves. Especially right now, it's Pride Month. There's like a lot of vitriol in the world against each other, and I think that all it takes is one person to say, oh, I see you. That is so valuable for someone's existence and for our purpose here as people. And so I really value when people take the time like you do to come and chat with us. And so this is such a huge production for you as an individual. So congratulations. This is so much work. Just acknowledge that too.
Thank you.
And the incredible creative conversations that you're supporting and the people that you're highlighting is fantastic.
Thank you.
So congrats. But I think that is something that I really value, is just spending time with people, meeting the individual, but also just like making people feel seen and heard, because we need more of that in the world.
100%. Yeah, thank you for being one of those people in the world that are there seen.
That's nice.
There was a poem, Hafez, and of course, I mean, I'm not going to try to say it word for word, but it was something along the lines of, imagine everyone that you meet on a day-to-day basis, and again, I think it was written in Persian or something. But
of course, something beautiful, something beautiful and lyrical.
Everyone you meet they're saying things to you, but really all they're doing in their eyes is just saying, "Love me." Right? And what would it be like to be one of the people that goes around the world with a full moon in each eye that is saying what everyone is dying to hear?
Yes.
And that's
exactly it.
Right? Seeing people is a way of saying, I love you. Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, out in the world. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. We're all walking each other home. You know? We are. Yeah. And I really think that. And I think that more spaces like this that let you do that and let you be seen and be loved and be valued and belong is so important for where we're at right now.
100%. Yeah. Okay. Is there, if people want to go and check out more of what's going on at Tosh or with your consulting, where do they go?
Yeah, our website for the Old Schoolhouse is www.theoldschoolhouse.org. And I can be found on a website that doesn't exist yet, but will soon, at illana.ca.
Illana.ca,
Yeah.
that will be the URL?
That will be the URL, but in the
Illana-
meantime, you can just get a hold of me here.
Great. And can you spell the Illana?
Oh, it's illana.ca.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice grab on that domain.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Did
The
you get that a
illest.
little while ago?
I've had it for a long time.
That's good. Okay, well, thank you so much
Perfect.
for taking the time.
Thank you.
And thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, y'all.
Be well. I look forward to connecting with you again. This has been Storyhive on location Nanaimo. Be well, be wild, be your beautiful self every once in a while. And now, I stand up and I leave the guests sitting awkwardly as I go to stop the live stream here.